you have to say no to a lot of stuff. So you have to not do everything. You want to do everything. And you also, when you have a team, you want to help them do everything. But there's certain ideas that you have to say, like, that's not a good idea. That's a $10,000 idea. We're trying to make $1 million. So let's focus on $1 million ideas.
Welcome back to CashFlow, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yost, and today, my special guest, Andrew Greer.
Hey, nice to see you.
Hey, man, great to have you on. I've been looking forward to this. In the San Diego market, you're definitely a staple in our industry. Everybody, it feels like 6 degrees of separation of you. Everybody knows you or has worked with you or been on a project with you. I haven't had anybody go like, nah, that guy sucks. Not yet. But so I'm so glad to have you on. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
So a little bit of background. The Real Estate Pro Team powered by Real, that's your firm.
Yep.
And you've been doing this for a couple minutes, correct?
Yeah, 14 years now.
And how'd you get into this gig?
I got into it. I was a stockbroker. Market went belly up and ran into my old bar manager, and he was flipping houses. And I was like, dude, I want to follow you, learn how to do it. Long story short, spent 4 months following him, then branched out on my own.
Man, your old bar manager. When we talk about mentors and mentorship, that's the great way to start. So niche, why not selling homes or, doing loans? Like, why flipping?
Yeah, no, I think that came from the idea. I liked investing money. I was a stockbroker, so right. It's like, hey, let's take your money, let's turn it into something. And the idea of having like a tangible asset, you could walk up, you could tap it. Hard money means it's a hard asset. So I could raise money that way. And then I could also go show other investors like, oh, this is the house we're doing. This is the house we did. Yeah. It becomes real. It's not like, oh, here's our widget that we sold and we made this much money.
Right. I like the idea of case studies. And I think, like I've heard you say before, technically, if it all went to shit, you could still have that tangible asset right there. Right?
100%. Yeah. If you still have something. I mean, you may not have very much left in it, but you still have something. It's not like, Enron can't, disappear overnight.
Yeah, that paper can't disappear. Talk to me about, when we're in the investment space, your real estate investment philosophy. Like, what drives you or motivates you when you're looking to make a deal?
Yeah, so I think there's phases to this. So I'm going to kind of explain it a couple ways, like what my phase was before, what my phase is now. So before it was, I don't have any money.
That's a great place to start with.
So I need to get money. So flipping was the way to start making some cash. Okay. So I was doing only flips. And eventually, that just becomes a lot of tax dollars going out because it's all short-term cash. So it was like, hey, let's look into development. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was like, let's build single family homes. Let's map projects. Let's take areas, map them, do that. So I did that a few times, really got my teeth kicked in once, but then started making some money because I learned from those lessons and started selling the maps. And then I was like, hey, it's time to start building these maps, actually build the projects. So stepped into that, started building single family homes. Still turns out that you do all that work, you still have to pay a lot of tax. It may not be short-term capital gains, but it's still capital gains and still a decent amount of money that comes out. So it was like, hey, let's figure out how we can hold these. And then as soon as I was able to buy and hold or build and hold, actually, I realized, oh my gosh, cost segregation, depreciation, actually having the money coming in. It felt really hard to put all this money in to have a few $1,000s come in every month. But now it's like, oh my gosh, but my tax base is completely shifted. Everything about my portfolio shifted. And I got really lucky to be in a position in 2020 where I was building 3 projects that I thought I was going to sell, but I got to keep because the rates went down so much and rents went up so much. Right. That I was in the sweet spot.
Who's arguing with 2 to 3% interest rates and rents skyrocketing? Nobody.
Yeah, no, it was everybody in 2022, 23, and 24.
Right. If you have a 5% mortgage or 6.5 or whatever as of today, like, when are they going to come down? It's like,
they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going back down to 2.5. 2 3/4.
I hate to hear the complaining about 6.5 as it is. I'm like, there was a time when they weren't anywhere near. So
Yeah, they were at 12% when I was born.
I was gonna say, when I started in the industry too, like I remember the rates were coming down from 10 to 9, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's time to refinance again. Hey, it's time to refinance again." So, which kind of got our boom going. Let's talk about some case studies and some deals. I know you've got an eclectic bag of wins, losses, and great stories. So let's talk about a deal. Let's maybe start with talk to me about your Encanto deal.
Yeah. So this deal was crazy. And it's really one of the reasons that going into development and understanding investment can be such a massive game changer. Also a reason why working with a professional can be a massive game changer. And I'll explain that. So this property was on market in Encanto. It was a flip. It was priced poorly as a flip. It was expensive. So there wasn't a lot of activity on it. You know, we were on it within 24 hours, so it was quick. So call up the listing agent. Hey, like, where are you at? If I come in 6,000 over at 575, can I lock up this property? Oh, you know, they got to look at it. They got to make sure it works. And I was like, okay, do you have any other offers? Another tip for everybody. If you have showing time, don't display all of your open time slots. I went into showing time to book my showing, and there was only one other showing booked. So I knew right away people weren't jumping on it. So he said, yeah, no, we could probably get that done. Send in the offer, takes 3 days. They accept it. Now, here's the thing. I wasn't buying a flip. He was selling a flip. I was buying a development. This property was on a 21,000 square foot lot.
Got it.
That he was not marketing at all. And the house was located on the very front of the lot. And I had gone through, did a feasibility, figured out how to slam 18 units, I believe,
Boom.
on the property.
Boom.
So I was like, this is great. I'm going to buy this. It's a development. And went through the whole process. I saw when I wrote the offer that it was in, it came back signed. I was like, oh, it's not signed by it's not signed by this person. So I reached out and he's like, oh yeah, no, they passed away. So I was like, awesome. It's a probate deal. He doesn't know yet. So ends up going through probate. So I have just over 3.5 months to work on my feasibility.
Wow.
So
they had to wait. I mean, because of the probate, they had to wait to get approval before they could actually close. So that's market time for you, which in any other time, maybe in the market, that might be bad, but this was just appreciation going.
Yeah, this was perfect for us. So we did our design. We came up with everything. Not a ton of money, $5,000 we put into it. And the day that we closed, I got on the phone to local developers and I said, hey, I have a deal. You can put 18 units on it. I want $1 million for it. After 3 days, I got an offer at $975, and I was able to close that in less than a month. So $5,000 in, vision, and the ability to actually get it done, got it done. Now, here's the kicker. These sellers, unfortunately, went with an out-of-area agent, and they went with a discount broker. So they basically put a sign in the yard and took some basic comps and didn't even take into account this lot. So I also like to bring this up. I didn't go to some grandma and offer her nothing. This was on the MLS.
Right.
It just wasn't apparent to everybody else. But with that skill base and knowledge, we were able to take it and rip that fruit right out of the property.
You know, more and more I hear stories of poorly marketed MLS properties that just fall into this window of like the area and price means that not everybody's searching for it. And somebody with an eye sees it, can't really understand what was going on here, but knows that it's a deal, and they make that offer, and they're the ones who make money on it.
Oh yeah, there's snags like that all the time. You can't just put a sign in the yard and get top value. Doesn't work like that anymore.
You get what you pay for.
Yep.
I love that, and again, both the lesson on going with the right agent to represent you, and then knowing how to look at a deal and see it for what it is, not just what it's being marketed as. So
yeah.
All right, this is one of my favorites that I'm sure a lot of people have heard about. But talk to me about the church. Like, you own a church? How did that come about?
So I own a church.
Pastor Greer.
Yeah. So I think it's Padre at the church. Yeah. So,
no, I like this. That fits San Diego.
So this one was interesting. It's number one thing, answer your phone. A lot of agents don't answer their phone. You got to answer your phone when people call. and you got to make sure that you're following up with people that reach out to you about weird deals. So I had a sign on a property I was building that said, hey, we're buying properties in the area. Let us know if you want to sell. Family drove by that was inheriting this church, and they're like, hey, we just need to sell this thing. We want $600,000 for it. At the time, it was 2020. I looked at it and I was like, I could probably do 500 is where we started. They're like 575. It's like 565. Let's lock it up. Give me a 45-day escrow so I can get my financing. Yeah. Cool. No worries. So I ended up going into escrow. My plan was to put 14 units on it because it was a big half-acre lot.
Sure.
So go into escrow at 565 and get the prelim back, and it's just like it looks. Loaded. It's like a rap
Loaded
sheet.
With cloud on title.
So the mother who had passed away had given it to a pastor who had not been doing the accounting correctly.
Yeah, sure.
No statements of information for 20 plus years,
That happens.
or almost 20 years, I guess, at the time. So they had to go through and unwind this. Well, in 2020, there's weird thing happened, like we had COVID or something. So
could have slowed down the government process.
Yeah, just bureaucracy really sank in and slowed this whole process down. And it took 21 months to unwind it.
So you're in escrow for 21 months on a property that you locked up at 565.
At 565 in 2020. Wow. So not only did we have 2020, 2021, boom, we also had all the zoning changes. So I went from 14 units to 100 plus units. I had the market just go like this. Yeah. So I was like, they're like, hey, sorry it's taking so long. Don't worry.
Take all the time you need.
Yeah, you can take as long as you like. So as we unwind that whole thing, I end up closing on the property finally, 565. Again, get on the phone, start calling investors. Lock up a investor, a developer at 1.9 on an LOI. Downside here, though, is the market, the rates had gone up. Our rates started going up. Yeah. So as he was going to release contingencies, hey, guys, we can't make this work.
Pass on the deal.
Yeah. So cool. No worries. We'll just put it on the market, get it up on the market, but then have an agent come in to interview for our team. And have a quick conversation like, oh, yeah, I primarily do leasing. I was like, oh, we don't really do commercial leasing. Yeah. Okay, well, it doesn't seem like it's a good fit, but hey, great to meet you. We can always cross paths on other stuff. We've actually sent her a ton of leases too. And she goes, yeah, random thing. I'm looking for a church to lease for a client. And I was like,
random thing. Huh?
I was like, that's really weird. I own a church.
Welcome to Padre Greer.
Yeah.
I have a church.
So end up setting an appointment to go out and look at the property. And they're walking through, and I'm like, hey, 3-year lease, and then I'm going to take over, and I'm going to build on it. Yeah. Because I was like, hey, if I can cover my debt and just go through this, make a little bit of money, cool, perfect, good time for me. One thing leads to another. They're walking it, and they're like, oh, no, we need to do a lot of work here. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to do any work. They're like, well, would you sell it to us? Yeah. I was like, yeah, of course I'd sell it to you. I'd say,
so what I'd like to do, of course.
So they're like, yeah, but we can't finance it right now. And I was like, okay, well, my price is $1.5 million. That's what I want for it. I'd heard the 1.9. I was like, 1.5, I'll do it. Have a conversation. Takes a couple weeks, but what we ended up doing is we came up with a lease option for the property. Nice. So they have a 5-year lease. Nice. They've agreed to the $1.5 million. They pay me every month. Their rent, triple net. So they cover taxes, everything. Mm-hmm. And I own that property. It's been almost 3 years now. They're going to get close to exercising their options soon. Right. They do have optional buyouts at a little bit cheaper price too.
Yeah, right.
But it's been one of those deals that very, very fortunate with the timing, but then also created an opportunity where these guys weren't lined up on financing. So they've been setting that up, and they've been paying down the purchase. So they're coming in. They've been putting down every 6 months a little bit more money towards the purchase.
Gotcha.
So they're in a position where they can actually finance it at the end.
And this is a church organization as well?
Yeah.
So they're using it what its intended was for?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like a moral win as well. You know? Kind of good with the guy upstairs as well as putting this together. So from hey, I'm building this project and call me if you have other projects near me to a chance encounter with an agent that was looking to get a job, you were able to put together this whole deal, and there was COVID in between.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so Probably my favorite deal. Like it was so unique, and there were so many different things that happened, and a little bit of serendipity. And it's turning. And we donate the toys from our big holiday party every year to their group. So we make sure that they give us a list of the toys they want. We get them in there with everything else. Those Toys for Tots, the school districts, we get to cover a lot of people with that.
I love it. And the Beers and Cheers is an amazing, amazing event. And there's not enough talked about how well you do with our real estate community in, giving back at that time of year. So kudos to you guys. Okay, I want to do one more deal with you. And this is maybe more for the professionals out there and less of the, do-it-yourself investors trying to get into different deals. We hear about shady characters in our business and what to watch out for. And we're always asking, like, hey, what should we look out for, risk tolerance. But talk to me about when you got fraud involved.
Yeah. So this one's been big lately because I put the video out about it. But we had a recent deal where I'll walk through the whole deal, but essentially grant deed was stolen. So I'm going to explain the whole process, because I haven't been able to explain the whole process on Instagram or wherever people see my short videos. So went into escrow with a gentleman, and I'll say his name, Kevin Trin.
Kevin Trin.
And he locked up a property with my clients that I actually owned the property. I sold it to these guys. Right. They did all the plans and everything on it, and then they came back and they're like, hey, you know this property better than anybody. Sell it for us. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Like, I can totally help you with that. So took it to market. They came in with an offer. We sat down, negotiated at the actual table. We had a lunch together, brought everyone together, and negotiated the contract in person, which I like doing on developments.
Absolutely.
And came to an agreement. First loan, second position loan, doing some seller carry for him, but really put together a sweet deal for him. Went through the whole escrow, stall, stuff that made me a little nervous, just the stall
red
tactics.
Flag stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff that makes your hair on the back of your neck stand up, those things, you got to listen to that.
You have to, and we'll find out why.
Right.
So came to one final extension, and I said, hey, release your money hard to us. Yeah. Release the money hard. So it was just $10K, and then we had them increase the deposit. A few weeks later, couldn't close, ended up canceling. No harm, no foul, whatever, like you waste our time. It happens. Deals fall out.
Sure.
13 days later, though, there was a few steps taken where Kevin went and pulled a grant deed. Really? Then he added the property information for this property, then made himself a partner in that property on the paperwork. We don't know if he provided corporate docs or not, but he was able to sign as an entity he didn't own. Transferred it to himself, went physically recorded it, paid transfer tax, added a title number to it, and identified that PCOR, so that's primary change of ownership, had occurred in the transaction. Several mistakes is what he's saying. So those are the mistakes taken. So this property transferred. Now, we're none the wiser to this.
Sure.
At all, because this just happens.
It's gone. Yeah, no big deal.
Well, property's coming to market. I put it back online. The agent calls me and he's like, "Hey, my client's still interested in the property. Kevin still wants the property. All right, get us an offer, but $35,000 hard before we accept it. I want it released from escrow, and then we'll sign your contract." Right. So they do that. $35,000 in escrow released. Execute contract, go into escrow. Oh. So we've already taken $35,000 EMD. 7 days later, we get a message from escrow. Hey, we need the entity docs for this new entity that is popped up on title. And I'm like, cool, no worries. My client's an investor, has multiple entities. And I'm like, hey, get me those entity docs. 30 seconds later, what entity? What are you talking about? Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, pick up the phone. Hey, let me look at this grant deed. I'm saying it to you right now. I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh. Right. This guy signed a grant deed over to himself for your company. He's like, wait, what? So I call a couple attorneys, call title. I'm like, what's going on? I reach out to the title company on the title order. They're like, we don't have this title order. That's a fake title order.
That's a fake title order.
Yeah.
Way to go, county recorder. Just in case you didn't know, to look at any of this stuff. And you hear this all the time. The horror stories of like the recorder isn't they just record.
They just record.
They don't really look out.
Mm-hmm.
Continue.
Boxes
please.
are checked.
Yeah.
It goes through the machine.
You did it right. There you
Yeah.
go. Boom. Check this. Yeah.
So they're like, not our title number. One thing leads to another. I'm like, all right, we just got to call them and ask them what's up.
Yeah.
So our response was like, oh my gosh, I'd be mad too. Must have been a mistake. I'll get it fixed. And I'm like, no. You're not going to fix this.
Yeah.
I'm going to reach out to our attorney. She's going to fix it because implications are crazy. This happened at the end of 2024. So we've had a tax year close, entity change. We have now taken the basis up because we took it. For some reason, you paid transfer tax on the other price. Why would you do that? So you've increased the property tax. And now it's switched names, and now it's going to come back. So 1031 possibilities, all these other implications.
So, you're right. They're right. You looking down the road, there is a ton of stuff that would happen in any normal ownership change, and this one is probably allegedly not the most correct ownership change.
Yeah. So had to put together this deed that was 9 pages, which I've never seen a 9-page deed that specifies everything that happened, and get that recorded. So title's back in my client's name, thank goodness. And we're going through escrow. One thing leads to another. He bails on the escrow.
Sure.
It happens. But the crazy thing is the steps, the motions, the actions were insane. And
to end up buying back and then walking away from the deal you were buying back, why not just disappear and go like, hey, it's my property now. I don't know what we're doing.
That's what I don't get.
Our deal went through. Yeah, it's mine now. Like, don't you guys all remember? Oh, you don't? Well, here's a document.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. And unfortunately, not the first property it's happened on too now.
Yeah. That's a part that if it's not the first one, then wipe the brow because you guys probably got away, luckily, after what could have happened.
Yeah, exactly. So just buyer beware, or seller beware, I guess. And one thing we've added, we weren't doing background checks on seller carries. We were doing finance checks, credit check, all that jazz.
Sure.
See what other stuff they have. We ran a background check, and I wish we had run it sooner.
Like private investigator style background check. Yeah. You know what? It's funny that you bring that up because just today, after we had talked pre-production about the story, somebody came to me about seller financing deal, and I was saying, look, there's a couple ways to go, but the biggest thing is more than a credit check. Just pay a private investigator to do a background check on them. And it was, hey, just stuff, enough red flags to go like, this is going to help you. Worst case scenario, you pay $1,000 and you find out they are who they say they are and they're fine. But yeah, great point. But before we wrap up, and I know we don't have a lot of time left, and I love the case studies you laid out, but I have my own question. Like, I've seen you on all your videos with this fucking bat, man.
Yeah.
And I want to know, I know we don't have tons of time, so I want to know, where'd you get this bat? What does that symbolize? Like, I see you're out doing all kinds of investor kind of case studies out in the field, but you got the bat. So what's the story behind the bat?
Yeah, so the bat's fun. Maybe people could remember when San Francisco and the Saints went into the Super Bowl, and the Saints came out with bats, and the bat said, "We bring the wood," and it's bringing the wood is a heavy hit in football. So they came out with those bats, and I was going to a convention where Tristan Ahumada was going to be attending, and I really wanted to speak at Lab Coat Agents Live. Nice. So running through my head, how am I going to get this guy's attention? I got to stick out. I was like, oh, when the Saints came out, they said, oh, bring the wood. They had the bats. I was like, what if I walked in with a bat and I put, if you let me speak at Lab Coat Agents Live, I'll bring the wood. Right. And I know that's a very harebrained idea, but somehow I came up with it at the time. I got 4 bats, messed up 2 of them, got the third one right because I can't write, and put it on the bat, walked into the event, slammed the bat down while my buddy was speaking on stage, and just left it in front of Tristan and then went to my seat. And then after Sam finished speaking, he was on stage, Tristan comes up and goes, yeah, I'll give you an hour on stage at Lab Coat Agents.
Right, nice.
So that was how I got my first hour. And to start that event, I came out with a bat. And then the bat has just become like a thing now.
Right.
I just have the bats all the time.
I love the way you took the bull by the horns with grabbing that opportunity. And now, like I said, I've seen you outside of, building, developments that you're going to do, giving talks, and I see maybe not that bat, but I see you with some bat. I've always been like, hey man, where does that come from? I love it, man. And I love the way you got into that. I want to close with one big question for you, and it's for a lot of it for the audience, but in terms of, we go through challenges every day. Number one, what's your biggest challenge that you face right now at the level you're at? Okay.
Yeah.
And then close me with, like, for the young, new entrepreneur, real estate investor, what's a piece of advice for them?
I'd say my biggest challenge is you have to say no to a lot of stuff.
Sure.
So you have to not do everything. You want to do everything. And you also, when you have a team, you want to help them do everything. Right. But there's certain ideas that you have to say, like, that's not a good idea. Right. Like that's not, I don't want to squash dreams, but sometimes it's like, that's a $10,000 idea. We're trying to make $1 million. Yeah. So let's focus on $1 million ideas.
I like the way you put that.
So I'd say that's like the biggest thing right now for me on challenge. And then, like, young entrepreneur, like, number one thing is listen to people that have done it and don't listen to people who haven't. You have to listen to people who have done it and try and find a mentor that you can assist.
Right. I can't say enough about listening to people who have done it. There's so many people who listen to a sphere of influence who they are nowhere. They're good people. They love you. They care about you, but they can be naysayers, and sometimes that negative energy stops you from taking that risk that you need to. So I really love that advice, and I love the fact that you're saying like that's a great $10,000 idea, but we're looking for $1 million ideas. That is a great use of your time. I can't thank you enough for joining us. I know that our audience is going to get a lot out of this, and I'm really appreciative of being involved in a lot of the great stuff you're doing in our industry. So thank you again, Andrew Greer. Everybody else, thank you for tuning in to CashFlow. Again, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. We'll see you next time.